Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan can where we answer fans questions. So there's a lot to talk about in the news. Real quick, I want to shout out the fact that Jalen Waddle and Xavier Howard have both made the top 100, and Jalen Waddle got a lot higher, getting into the 60s than I thought. I thought X should be a little bit higher. He only got into like the mid 50s. But I don't know. I just didn't expect Waddle to make it, and I didn't expect him to be that high either. So it was just nice to see him get some national recognition. So let's get into the news you need to know about. This is some news over the past week that happened that I'm pretty sure everybody knows about that's listening to the show. But I thought it just brings up an interesting topic. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins wide receivers Preston Williams and Lynn Bowden Jr., they are shopping them. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. They are on the trade block. Reported by Albert Breer, of Sports Illustrated. Obviously Preston Williams took some of his grievances on Twitter about how he wasn't getting enough touches in practice. And Lynn Bowden, who I thought fit this scheme a lot, I think it's really mostly about the fact that they have so much depth at the receiver position. Maybe they want to keep some of the former Niners players on the team because they know the scheme a little bit better. Maybe they have a little bit of a leg up on some of the carryover players from the previous regime. They have a lot. I mean, Trent Sherfield's another good player that obviously knows the McDaniel scheme. They just have so many good receivers. And even the Tampa Bay broadcast, which is what I was watching last night of the preseason game, was talking about how great, like, if a team both teams, and of course they're not biased, at least towards the Dolphins, they're like, the Dolphins have such good depth there that if another NFL team wanted to, obviously they could get a really quality player, because they all can't make it. And you add the fact that they drafted, Eric, and they have Braylon, who also is an undrafted rookie, who's developing in the right direction too. So they have so many great players. But I thought Lynn Bowden obviously had a fantastic first preseason game. I think he fits the scheme a lot. He can do a lot of the gadget plays that McDaniel likes to do with the receivers. We saw some of that with Cedric Wilson. He caught that little bit of like a jet sweep pitch type play that Deebo Samuel ran a lot last year. And I think Lynn actually, out of everybody on the roster, would be the best at it. He's so good in tight spaces, and he's he's got great field vision, great feel for the game in the open field. I think he would be perfect for that stuff. So I think if out of any of the other carryover guys, especially between Preston and Lynn, I think Lynn has the best chance of making the roster, especially with his performance last night. He's a really good route runner as well. You can just do a lot with him. You can get really creative with him. And I would expect him to make the roster. I think he's going to continue to be a really good player for us and continue to perform in preseason. And like I said, I think, especially out of the two, Preston and him, I think he fits the scheme a lot. You can do a lot of creative stuff with him. I will say this. I hope they take him off the trade block, as this report, especially after last night. I was like, man, I really like Lynn's game, and I think he could do a lot of really cool stuff in this scheme. As for Preston, you can't keep them all. He was kind of quiet last night in the preseason game. And again, you have to let someone go. And if they decided to be Preston, I understand it. There's just so much stuff you have to take into consideration. And Preston really probably will be the odd man out. Other quick news story here that happened over the week. Dolphins trade tight end Adam Shaheen to the Houston Texans. They get a 6th-round pick out of it, which is pretty nice. The trade was official. He failed a physical, but I'm fairly certain that I think he went through, or ended up going through. So obviously the Dolphins have a lot of tight end depth as well. Shaheen, one of the better run blockers on the team, but maybe they were like, all right, we got a lot of the same guys on the roster. We might as well flip him for a pick. They ended up doing it. Shaheen had an interesting career in Miami, obviously coming from Chicago, former 2nd-round pick. Had a couple of nice plays, but never really lived up to what I think everybody thought he could be. It's weird, very odd career. He's a big dude, great run blocker, good hands. I don't really understand what the heck happened. I feel like he kind of underperformed. Could have been better is basically what I'm saying. And this next news story is very sad and unfortunate. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins cornerback Trill Williams suffers a torn ACL. He suffered it in last night's preseason game. Very unfortunate. Obviously, he dealt with injuries last year as well. And he's only 22 years old. We'll see what the Dolphins ended up doing with him. Obviously, according to everybody, had a really good camp. He looked good in last night's game, especially with some of the other corners not playing as well. I thought he did a really good job, especially in zone coverage, of coming up and making tackles and making plays. Obviously, he's a bigger corner. It's very unfortunate, and we'll see what ends up happening. Because again, like I said, he was making plays in camp. The Dolphins obviously need depth at corner, especially after last night's game. Looking at some of the players that didn't perform up to definitely everybody else's stand, especially expectations. I thought we would, especially Igbenogany, which we'll get into here in a minute. But it'll be interesting to see what the Dolphins do to add more depth to the cornerback room. I don't think it's as bad as other people are saying, like, especially over like the social media. After last night's game, everybody's like freaking out about the cornerback depth. I didn't think it was that. Like, you guys got to remember, they have three really good starters: Nick Needham, Byron, and X. And then after that, Keon Crossan, who's had a good game in last night's game, and has had a great camp. So it's not like they don't have depth there. They do. And one thing I will say about Igbenogany's performance, he clearly has a mental, like, his confidence needs to get up. And, Mike McDaniel referenced it after the game where I was like, he just needs to play out there and not think so much. Because a lot of the times he's in position, he just needs to either get his head around or look for the ball. And that's really his biggest flaw right now. He did lose a player on a crossing route. But other than that, it's like he's right there. Even in some of the training camp stuff that we saw with the joint practices with the Buccaneers, he gave up a few 50-50 balls in practice. It's like, but he's in position. He just needs to make, it's just very minute technique issues. And we've seen this with some other corners who never could learn it and just never could get that part of the game down, is just look for the ball while it's in the air. And that's just, I guess, it's really just the next step he needs to take. Or the Dolphins need to switch him to safety position, because I think he would be a good safety as well. Matching up with tight ends and stuff, but I don't know. We'll see what Igbenogany does for the rest of the preseason, but like I said, it'll be interesting to see. I know a lot of Dolphins fans want Chris Harris, which I'm not too against. He is older. He hasn't really played a ton on the outside, so you really would be getting him for more of a slot cornerback depth there. So he's not really that versatile. If someone got hurt, and especially if someone needs to take over in the Byron Jones spot on the outside, he's not the greatest replacement for that. So we'll see what they end up doing. I don't think Chris Harris is like the worst thing in the world to happen. Obviously, he's a good veteran player, really good in man coverage. He's 33 years old. Like I said, not the most versatile. I don't think he would help on the outside. But again, it'll be interesting to see what the Dolphins will do. There are some veteran corners like Chris Harris still out there. Maybe they can make a trade. Excuse me. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. I do like Keon though. I think Crossan has been playing fantastic so far. He had a really, really sick breakup in that game, which was a very tough thing that Igbenogany needs to get better at. Just look for the ball, be comfortable, and apparently, at least according to the beat writers, he's been having, even the Tampa Bay reporters were saying that in the game, that Keon has had by far the best camp out of any of the other younger corners. So I like what I've seen from him so far. And people who don't know this, but he has a lot of experience in the New England defense. He, was formerly a Patriot, so he has a lot of experience in the scheme. Maybe he's starting to find his footing a little bit. And I think he fits the outside a little bit better because he does have really good straight line speed. And as we saw last night, he's got some pretty good ball skills as well. I think that's it for the news We covered pretty much all of it. So let's get into the game. The Dolphins defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their first preseason game, 26-24. And I really just wanted to run through some of the things that really stood out to me. Number one, because we just talked about it, I did think the corners struggled against some of the speed of the Buccaneers. Not in man-to-man coverage so much as it was in zone. Overall, I thought the base defense, which is what the Dolphins played, very vanilla base defense. But they did do some of that last year with some of the base defense, single high safety, cover three, very vanilla look. And I thought, and this is a problem that they had last year, anytime they went to zone coverage, they really struggled to execute it. And I thought that kind of showed up in this game as well. A lot of blown coverages, the linebackers not carrying the people up the seam. Even some of the nickelback stuff wasn't great. I thought just way too many blown coverages in zone, and especially early on in the game, they really struggled to come up and tackle the running backs when they were playing soft coverages. So that stood out to me. I hope that gets better. And again, obviously all of the players that we're talking about are mostly backups, especially in the secondary. I thought they got better. Like Elijah Campbell, who had the sick interception in this game, that insane pick. He did a really good job when he came into the game of in-zone coverage, of not only playing good zone coverage defensively, but coming up and making tackles, which is what you have to do in zone coverage. Like I felt like started to kind of get it going in the right direction. So that was one of the negatives that I saw. I was like, I kind of wish we saw improvement there, and I hope we will see that with. We didn't see any of the cover 4 stuff that I think they have been at least trying to implement, which is good. I think they're just saving that for the regular season. But the single high safety zone stuff, especially in the base defenses, was not. It was really bad. And we didn't see a lot of the blitz packages. The Buccaneers did it a lot, which was like, all right, guys. I mean, it's preseason, but we didn't. I think we did it like 4 times, maybe like 4 blitz looks. Some of the other things that I noticed that was more on the positive side is some of the run defense stuff. I thought Jalen Phillips looked really good on the edge in the few snaps that he did take. He obviously got the holding call that was going against the Buccaneers. I thought he looked really good setting the edge there. I thought John Jenkins obviously couldn't play with us last year due to injuries. I thought he looked really, really good as an inside presence. Not only just to kind of get penetration, but to let those linebackers kind of have a little bit more freedom behind him. I think he's going to really help the run defense. And I think, honestly, the best run defender of the night. I want to get this right. Number 95, I think. I can't. Yeah, number 95 defense. I'm forgetting his name. I'm sure you guys know. I thought he was the best run defender all night. He made a lot of really nice plays in the run game. Got penetration. And, one of the things that's underrated about being a defensive tackle especially is it's not just being big and strong. You have to have explosiveness off your get-off to really generate that power and to get that penetration. So it's all good and great to be a big dude, but you do, and that's what happens to a lot of those older defensive tackles that have all that weight on them, like Mike Daniels and Akeem Hicks and some of those guys. It's just, now they're just kind of blocks, and offensive linemen can move dead weight easily. You have to generate that kind of explosion and push, and I thought 95 did a really good job of that all night. And same thing with John Jenkins, especially for an older player, for him to still have some of that is nice. So I thought those two were good. I think the run defense is going to be better because of that. I really like the versatility and depth at the defensive tackle position. And one of the other things that I noticed right away, especially on the offensive side of the football, was just the scheme is really good. You notice it right away, especially in pass protection. We were awful in play action last year, and I thought the pass protection and the way it was drawn up and the way it was executed was beautiful. Every time we did it, not only did we have really nice pass protection, but we had a lot of really creative stuff in the passing game to get guys open. And not only were they open, they were wide open. So that was really encouraging. And the fact that we weren't able to get the run game going, and the Buccaneers had a lot of people in the box, that's a Todd Bowles special. And we took advantage of that with some of the play action stuff. But I think the most impressive thing about it was just the way the pass protection looked. I think it was just significant. Like a significant upgrade from last year. Like I said, we were awful in play action. If you go back and look at the Texans game or even the Giants game, those are like some great examples of against not so great defensive lines, just awful play calling and plays there. And one of the things I love is the team is going to have an identity. It felt like in previous years, especially with some of the former OCs, that we were just running stuff to run it. There wasn't really an objective or an identity to the team, and obviously in this offense, it's going to be a lot of the run game, bootlegs, and play action, and really establishing a line of scrimmage, and do creative stuff off of that. And there's an identity and a purpose to what the Dolphins are doing on offense, as opposed to just what we were doing in the previous years, where it just felt like we were just doing stuff to just because we felt like this was a good play call. There wasn't really an objective to it, and you felt that in this Buccaneers game. So it was nice to see that. Mike McDaniel, it's not just hearsay and word. Like, he was really able to transfer that as a head coach to the field. Trying to think of some other things that really stood out to me. I'm like I said, the receivers. Like, I feel like this is a no-brainer, but every one of them, like, I thought, especially when Bowden and Sherfield, who had the one catch for 33 yards. Mohamed Sanu looked really good out there. I thought all the receivers looked really good. Really good. We're able to get separation on a consistent basis. I thought, like I said, Mike's scheme really put pressure on the defense and really utilized that speed and the space on the field. He did a really good job of play calling and taking advantage of all the space and making the corners really run with them, making the linebackers really have to respect the receivers on the back end. And it really led to a lot of blown coverages that's what the offense really broke the defense. And again, it's preseason. You're not getting a lot of exotic looks or anything like that, even though the Buccaneers did do a lot of the stuff that they do in the regular season with some of the blitzes and stuff. But the defense and the offensive scheme really broke what the defense was doing a lot of the time. And that was really cool to see Mike use the receivers in the way that they're supposed to be used and all the space on the field, but also to look at what Tampa Bay was doing and just, all right, here's what we're going to do against what you're going to do, and it's just going to break it. So, again, the receivers looked good. And shout out to Mohamed Sanu. He looked fast in this game. He had that really nice play up the sideline. And True Sherfield, all of those guys, man, Eric, who had the one catch, had that one drop, but that's okay. But I thought the receivers really popped, and you could really see their speed. And I thought Mike did a really good job of utilizing the speed. And some of the other things that were awesome that stood out to me, I'm trying to think if there's anything offensively that I didn't cover. Obviously, the return of Jason Sanders was awesome to see. Obviously, he had a rough year last year, but he's gone off to a great start in this preseason game. All of his kicks looked beautiful, all from different ranges. So it was nice to see Jason kind of get his mojo back. Skylar, obviously. Skylar Thompson, who I have been on his bandwagon since we drafted him, especially after watching him some of his stuff from Kansas State. And he had a really good OTAs. He had a good training camp so far, and he really showed that in this game. He looked really, really, really good. Most passing yards by a rookie quarterback since 1991. He was 20 for 28 for 218 yards and a touchdown. His down-the-field throwing was really great. I think the thing that stood out to me the most that I really liked about his game is his pocket presence was really good. He moved around the pocket really well all night, and he was able to make a lot of down-the-field throws with pressure in his face, which was also really nice to see, which is a skill that I think is the hardest to have and do at a high level in the NFL, is to make plays when pressure is around you, and especially if throws down the field, and I thought he did a really good job of that. Sorry, guys. So, huge. I thought Skyler looked fantastic. Has been living up to the hype in terms of what the beat writers have been saying about him, and it just really reinforces what I saw from him in college, and it continues to kind of build to this really, really cool diamond of the rough that I think the Dolphins found. And it's going to be awesome to continue to see him grow, and hopefully he continues to look great out there. Obviously, some of the negatives that I was kind of disappointed in, and I don't want to say, because honestly I was really surprised of how I just really was encouraged about how the offense looked, and obviously Skyler was fantastic all night, so it was nice to watch a really good quarterback performance, especially this early on in the preseason. But the run game was not great all night. One thing I will say is the Buccaneers had a lot of people in the box most of the time. They did have they played a lot of single high safety, a lot of through linebackers on the field. They have a lot of big dudes in the middle of the field. I would just say for Dolphins fans criticize, and again, yes, the run game was atrocious. It wasn't good. But for the people that are criticizing it, I will say this, that they could not have gone. They have the best depth out of any team in the NFL on the defensive line. They have a lot of really good interior linemen in Tampa Bay. A lot of really nice edge setters, especially in the run game. And schematically, they're set up to stop the run. And I thought the Dolphins did a good advantage. Like I said earlier, they took advantage of that. And because the Buccaneers had all those linebackers on the field, they were able to get a lot of those chunk plays. So it was a little bit of a give and take. But I will say, save the hate. And if this continues, then y'all can throw all the... And I'll be on here saying as well, like, oh, that sucks that it's another year where the Dolphins aren't going to have a run game. I don't believe that. I think we'll see a better product, especially as the preseason goes along. So I'm not alarmed by that at all. I was also disappointed in the tight ends. We didn't see a lot of them all night. Mostly it was because they were either protecting in the pass game and play action, or they just weren't targeted all that often. The play wasn't designed to go to a tight end. But, Gesicki had the nice little bootleg play there. But I was, wanted to see a little bit of Hunter Long and some of the other young tight ends on the roster. We got a few plays to the tight ends, but overall I was a little disappointed in that. I thought they did a really good job blocking all night, though. In my opinion, I did think some of the backup tight ends messed up some of the run blocking quite a few times. I thought, especially when we motioned them to block, they really couldn't get enough of the linebacker. We saw some of that on some of the screens with Durham Smythe. I thought Durham could have done a better job of getting out in space and blocking. But so yeah, the tight ends overall, I just felt like it was like, all right, it wasn't great. Yeah, and I think we covered pretty much all of it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I really wanted to bring up. That was pretty much all of my biggest takeaways from the game. It was nice. It was just a really good, feel-good game. Obviously, it was a nice little quarterback battle as well. And yeah, and again, one thing, and just to reiterate, I think secondary, is a complete overreaction. Not only do the Buccaneers have great depth there with Tyler Johnson, some of the other receivers that they have a nice little young player from Western Kentucky there as well. So I would just pump the brakes a little bit on that as well. I think hopefully we'll continue to see some of the growth that everybody else has been seeing with Igbenogany against a lesser competition. Because the Buccaneers receivers are good. And if they continue to struggle against, Tyler Johnson looked like a really good 2 in the NFL in that game. But yeah, if they continue, and same thing with the run game. More so with the run game, I would say. So yeah, that's it. We did it. About 24 minutes of news, and that preseason game got me really excited. Not only for Skyler, but just for the offense. I thought it was just it was refreshing to see a competent offense. And I know people are like, oh, it's preseason. It's not even about the players. It's just about the X's and O's of it. It's just a significant step up from what we've seen, especially in the Brian Flores era. It's much better quality. And I'm saying that after one preseason game. So, hold on, my dogs are freaking out. I'll be right back. Oh, and before we move on, I forgot to mention the linebackers. Um, I thought Sam McGuavin, I think, needs more playing time, especially in blitz packages. I think he's just really good on the line of scrimmage. Every time he rushes the passer, I think he looks pretty dang good. I thought Channing looked pretty. He just looked really fast. I think it's the best thing I can say about that. But it'll be interesting to see because I don't think he'll be used in a more traditional sense. By the time the regular season gets around, I think he definitely will be used in a situational, like, oh, let's have him just spy the quarterback. That way he doesn't have to worry about a lot of stuff. Because you could see the NFL game is a little fast for him, at least this early on in his career. So I think they'll just use him like that. Like, all right, just watch the quarterback or just go get after the quarterback, stuff like that. So let's get into the fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. This first question comes from Vladimir. He says, the defense looked a little questionable at tackling also. With Williams out, how do you feel about the secondary? Like I said, I think some of the secondary stuff was a little bit of an overreaction. Yeah, I thought the tackling got better as the game went on. And again, it was all in zone coverage, which is where the Dolphins really struggled. Of just executing basic stuff. They didn't carry a lot of people up the seam. They blew some coverages. Too many times that receivers just kind of run right past them without any contention there. So yeah, they got to get better in zone coverage. It was a very basic zone all night. Like I said, a very basic, really cover 3. But yeah, they did struggle of coming up and making tackles. Yeah, like I said, especially with Campbell, when he got more playing time, I thought the tackling got better. But again, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I think, like I said, the starters for the Dolphins in the secondary, some of the best in the National Football League. I think as a fourth guy, Crossan is played pretty well up to this point, and I think. And again, from all accounts, had a good offseason. So he didn't play bad in that last night's game at all. He actually played pretty well. So him as a fourth guy out, I'm pretty comfortable with. And he's been around the NFL for a few years now and has experience in the scheme. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, if Skyler continues to perform well, would you rather trade Bridgewater and keep Skyler as a quarterback 2 or keep 3 quarterbacks going into the final 53 or still cut Skyler? I think, and this is just a theory, but, Mike, who I thought had a fantastic, probably the best press conference a coach has had as a head coach after the preseason game. It was very insightful. And him saying that they just wanted Skyler to kind of feel what it's like to prepare for a game as a starter, and he wanted to see how he handled it, and he handled it really, really well. So maybe the Dolphins are thinking about doing that too, because they did do that and he did handle it well. And if he continues to handle it well, maybe you do flip Bridgewater for maybe you get some depth at corner, maybe at the offensive lineman, or you pick up a draft pick, because I think there would be a good market for Teddy. So to answer your question, Ethan, yes, I think we might be trending in that direction, or we keep 3 on the roster, which I'm not against either. This next question comes from Stone. He says, given that Noah has been in the defense for 2 seasons, giving him an advantage over guys like Terrell Williams, ACL, do you think we should finally move on from Noah after another poor performance, or since we need that spot filled now, do we keep him? Yeah, like I said, it was disappointing. It was a very disappointing performance. I think, honestly, and I do believe this, I don't think his position is on the outside. I don't think he has the speed and the ball skills to do it, at least what we've seen from him so far. Hopefully, maybe we get to see him against maybe some lesser receivers. But in the NFL, it's like, when are you really going to play lesser receivers? So, I don't know, like I said, it has been disappointing so far. I do think he could be a better inside corner and maybe a free safety or even a strong safety in this scheme, because safeties definitely have different responsibilities in the scheme than other defenses. So I think he's definitely not playing in his best position, and it shows. So to answer your question, I like Crossan, man. I think a lot of people aren't just talking about him because he is such a kind of a no-name guy. but has really good straight line speed and ball skills, which is what you need to play at the outside position on the at corner. And maybe you go out and get someone like Chris Harris to add to that room. It'd be a nice veteran presence, and he could kind of back up and maybe be the backup slot corner. This next question comes from SM. He says, hard to tell with all the backups in, but being that coach's background is a running back guru, I thought we would see more of the ground game. Well, I thought it was he recognized, and he even said it after the game, of what the Buccaneers were doing defensively, and he took advantage of it. So which I like in a coach, recognizing what the other team's doing and countering it. This next question comes from SM. He says, without even seeing Teddy Bridgewater, many fans are very much in love with Skylar Thompson as QB2. Would you feel comfortable trading Bridgewater for more online depth? Yes, I would. Especially if... And honestly, ever since Skylar has touched the grass on the Dolphins' field, he's been playing pretty well. Especially for a 7th round pick. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. This next question comes from Richard Rodriguez. He says, how impressed were you by the offensive line in the game versus the Bucs? I think I was more impressed just by the pass protection scheme itself than I was the offensive line. But they had a really... honestly, I think, especially if you go back and look at the game, especially in the run game, I think a lot of the assignments were messed up by the tight ends more than anything, especially on some of those motion blocks. But overall, I thought I was more impressed by the scheme itself. I thought pass pro they did fine. I thought against some of the blitzes which the Dolphins' offensive line has struggled at handling, and I think it's because it was a overcomplicated pass protection procedure that we had the last few years, where they put way too much on the quarterback's plate when it came to pass protection. In this game, and especially from what all we've heard from former offensive linemen that have played in the scheme and offensive linemen that still play in the scheme, it's a much simpler scheme. Mentally, and I think that showed in this game, so that's going to help them out a lot. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do against other competition, because the Tampa Bay front seven is very talented, and even at the linebacker position, I feel like they have a lot of depth there as well. So we'll see what they do against other teams, and especially other teams that don't stack the box like the Buccaneers do every single down. So we'll see how they look against other competition. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've been through it all. I'm very, very happy with what the offense did in that game. It made me really happy. Very encouraged. And defensively, like I said, we didn't play a lot of nickel defenses either. It was very vanilla, a lot of 3 linebackers, a lot of base defense for most of the game. So I wouldn't overreact to some of the secondary. And most of the secondary stuff, there was a couple of stuff in man-to-man coverage where, especially with Ignati giving up the 50-50 ball, and he did lose someone coming across the field. And again, not great signs from him. But other than that, most of the stuff that everybody else is talking about was just, I feel like, blown coverages and zone coverage, which is something that they have to get better at. And that was something that they struggled with last year. So hopefully they can continue to kind of get better at some of that stuff. And I think Josh can do a little bit better of a job of, it's rumored that he's added some of that stuff to the defense, but, disguising some of the looks, playing a little bit more 2 safeties back. A lot of the times in this defense is single high safety. Maybe we rotate them a little bit more to help out some of the zone defense deficiencies that we saw in this game. But other than that, pretty much positive across the board, especially offensively. And I love the aggressiveness too of the play calling, and pretty much every completion was over 15 yards, and all the routes were deep routes. And Mike said that he wanted to reflect the defense's aggressiveness with the offense. And I think you're gonna see, especially the way that we line up against defenses, you're gonna see what we saw at the end of last year. Just all the time, everybody's on the line of scrimmage, everybody's moving around all the time. It's trying to confuse the quarterback as much as possible. I don't think you're gonna see this vanilla stuff. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously, one thing, and I already said this, but Jason Sanders, it's good to see him kick the way he did his All-Pro year. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comment section below about this game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.